Before you spend a dime on your business, you need to know if there's real demand for what you're offering. In this lesson, we'll talk briefly about how to test your idea, understand your audience, and size up the competition so you're building a business on data and not just hope. The first lesson, know the problem. Before you think about logos, websites, brochures, pricing, marketing, you need to be crystal clear on the problem that your business will solve. What's the pain point your product or your service addresses? And more importantly, is that problem urgent, frequent, and meaningful to your potential customer? Back to the analogy I used in the earlier video. If you're passionate about underwater basket weaving, that's great for you. But how many people out there are going to find that a problem-solving product? If it's not something that keeps them up at night, or gets in their way regularly, they probably won't prioritize paying for a solution, especially from someone new. So you want to solve something that feels pressing, something that makes people say, yes, I need help with this now. That's where the traction comes from. So you want to spend some time here. You want to dig deep and say, if the problem is too vague or weak, it doesn't matter how polished the rest of the business looks. People want to spend money on things that solve problems, period. And that applies even to entertainment-based services or products, even like apps. It's solving a problem. So define the problem first. So if you've defined the problem, you understand what your product or service is going to address. It's time to understand who actually has that problem. And I'm not talking about in vague terms like, everyone or every small business owner. No, you need a clear picture of your ideal customer. So start with demographics. These are surface level traits. What's their age? What's their income? What's their education level? The location? For example, are you targeting college grads in urban areas or mid-career professionals in rural towns? You have to dig deeper with psychographics. What is it they believe? What are their fears, their habits, their routines, their goals? Two people can have the same income, but totally different worldviews. And this affects how and what they buy. And you also need to look at their behavior. Where do they spend their time? Online, offline? Are they hanging out on Instagram or LinkedIn? Do they shop by impulse or are they like my wife who does thorough research and reads all the comments on a product before she buys them? You got to understand how they think and where they hang out. And this helps you market in the right voice and place. And see, if you know your customer deeply, you're not just marketing to them, you connect. And that is how you turn interest into sales. If you know the problem, you know the customer, now it's time to understand the competitive landscape. You don't want to copy others, but you want to learn where you can stand out. So you ask yourself, who else is solving the same problem that I'm targeting? Study what they're doing well. Is it their pricing, their customer service, their design, their speed, their branding? Take note of what's clearly working for them. I know in our area at a shopping center, we've got a Chick-fil-A and we have a Arby's side by side. Chick-fil-A always has a line wrapped around the building, and half the time the parking lot at Arby's is bare. It's not because the product is less or greater. In my opinion, I think Arby's has a lot to offer. It's the branding and the speed of service that they provide at Chick-fil-A that makes the difference. Then we gotta look for gaps. What are the customers complaining about? What seems confusing or impersonal? What needs are going unmet by those competitors? Your goal here isn't to be better than everyone. That's impossible. The goal is to be different in a positive way that matters. Maybe you're faster. Maybe you're more affordable. Maybe you're more personalized. You're more values driven. That's your strategic positioning. Good competition here doesn't mean, that you can't pursue that product. It means there's already demand for that product or that service. So don't be intimidated by it. Just be intentional about how you show up in that space. If you have taken any business classes, you will have come across Michael Porter's 5 forces. This diagram is taken directly from Harvard's website. You can go check it out. Michael Porter was a professor and he was also a strategic thinker in the 70s and 80s and really impacted business strategy for the last, 30 or 40 years. And one of his diagrams talks about these evolving forces that affect competition in a particular market. And here's what they mean. You have the threat of substitute products, in other words, or services. Is there another product or service that could become a substitute of what I'm going to offer? What about the bargaining power of buyers? Those are the people that are going to buy your product or buy your service. How strong are they, and are they going to dictate to you the market cap, the price cap? You also have the power of the suppliers of the product that you're going to sell, or if you're providing a service, then the suppliers of that service are the employees and the contractors you hire to help deliver that. And you got to think about, well, how easy is it for new businesses to come on board and become competitors? Are there large barriers to entry? And the more steep those barriers to entry are, the more safe you may feel. And this is a summation of that rivalry that can exist among competitors in a particular area. So you take this diagram and you apply it to your business, and it helps give a clear picture of what's the environment I'm stepping into. So if you have a clear understanding of the customer and the problem you're solving and even the competition, it's time to back this up with some real data. Why? Because data confirms what people actually do, not just what we assume that they want. So start by gathering direct feedback through surveys, interviews, or even small focus groups. Ask potential customers what their biggest pain points are, how they currently solve them, and what they wish existed. Keep it short and listen more than you talk. Then there's passive research. This is what I like to call, digital listening. You're going to look up forums, Facebook groups, Reddit threads, even Amazon reviews for similar products or services. And what are people praising? What are they frustrated with? This is often more honest than a formal survey. And then finally, look at search behavior. What are people typing into Google? Use tools like Google Trend, Answer the Public, or Uber Suggest to explore these keyword volume and question patterns. This tells you what people are actually looking for and in their own words. And the goal here is simple. Don't build in the dark. Let the data shape your offer, your language, and your strategy.